From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
How big could this year's corn and soybean crops really be?
And so I don't see anything standing in the way of what is still expected to be very large corn and soybean crops.
Scouts are looking to find out. In the east, in the heart of the Midwest.
Indiana has potential for a record bean crop.
And in the Cornhusker State.
I'm Michelle Rook here in Nebraska, where crop conditions have done a 180 from last year when drought dominated much of the state.
As the 2024 Pro Farmer Crop Tour marches on right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. More farmers choose Pioneer brand corn because it delivers game-changing yields. Join a winning team. Pioneer brand corn. Your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. It's day 3 of the Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Will 2 I-states put up some incredible corn and soybean numbers? In Iowa, USDA is forecasting a potential record corn crop, and it's expecting the same out of Illinois, corn and soybean crops there. Scouts fanning out in fields again today, checking to see if those predictions could be true. Now in the West, they'll be checking yields and conditions starting in Nebraska City, ending the day in Spencer, Iowa. While in the East, they're moving from Bloomington, Illinois, ending up in Iowa City as the teams move ever closer to the tour destination in Rochester, Minnesota. But before that, on day 2, Scouts got a close-up look at Nebraska and Indiana. Now the western leg traveling from Grand Island to Nebraska City to see if USDA's prediction of 194 bushels per acre for corn and 59 bushels per acre for soybeans would hold true. AgDay's Michelle Rook continuing to follow the tour for us. And Michelle, after years of drought, Scouts were looking forward to better things out of Nebraska.
Moisture and crop conditions here in Nebraska are much improved over last year, where we saw widespread heat and drought stress. However, crop scouts are trying to determine if issues such as hail will trim overall yield potential in the state, which is set at near to record levels. What a difference a year makes. Last year, crop scouts encountered drought in most of eastern Nebraska, which impacted even irrigated crops.
I think this year there's a huge difference in moisture level.
And corn yields were uniform on their route from north to south.
Dry lands had pretty good rain in northeast Nebraska, so we saw consistent yields, 180 to 200, even dry land yields. Today we're in southeast Nebraska. Been very consistent again. Irrigated yields have been 200, give or take.
They did see some damage from earworms and western bean cutworm, but disease pressure was light. But that's not true everywhere.
A lot of areas are talking southern rust. We're certainly seeing it in south central Nebraska come in. A couple weeks ago, really started to flare up.
There's 42 plants in this foot. I've never had that many before.
Soybean yield potential also looks like it could exceed 2023 with better moisture and only a trace of pest problems.
This year we've caught in some of that range. We've had cooler temperatures. It hasn't been hot. The beans have handled it well.
We're finding more pods, and the pods look like a lot of 3-4 beans. They're coming along really well this year. Beans look really good.
But the big caveat for both crops is hail damage, like in Clay County.
We came through this area here and looked for it. I knew it was here. It's 30,000 acres. They said in Phelps County it was 400,000 acres.
So will that prevent Nebraska from hitting the 59 bushel soybean and 194 record corn yield predicted? Judah says it depends on how many acres were zeroed out.
So zero is going to be really hard to get to that top yield when all them acres are going to have to come out of the equation.
I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. In the East, the focus on day 2 was Indiana as the tour moved from Noblesville, ending the day in Bloomington, Illinois. The USDA forecasting record corn and soybean crops for the Hoosier State. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan covering the eastern leg for us. She reports based on what Scouts saw, USDA's estimates may not be too far off.
As the moon set and the sun peeked over the horizon on day 2 of Crop Tour, these scouts were already striding through Indiana fields, uncovering one of the better crops they've seen.
When we got into Indiana, our pod counts went way up yesterday afternoon. And then this morning, we're getting really good pod counts.
With pod counts pushing higher and consistent crops in field after field, scouts in the East were impressed with what they saw on Crop Tour Tuesday.
If the trend continues and the other routes see what we're seeing,
Indiana has potential for a record bean crop.
And in the corn, ear after ear,
the corn this morning has been really good.
Scouts also found high yield potential.
On the routes I've been on in Indiana on the corn it's been pretty consistent.
As ear counts and grain length were both up.
The 3 ears were between 8 and 9 inches, each one of them. They're real good ear count. The one thing that's going to hurt it a little bit is they were only 16 in diameter.
While the route did produce a couple anomalies,
this isn't quite normal for all the weeds in here. There's a lot of giant ragweed in this field.
Those trouble spots were few and far between. USDA currently has Indiana's statewide corn yield projected at 207 bushels per acre, a 2% increase over last year, with beans at 62 bushels per acre, a 1.6% increase from 2023. And if you ask local agronomists,
it's a bumper crop.
The stage is set for this crop to top last year's yields.
I'd say we're better off this year compared to last year because we had that extended period of dry weather last year where I thought things were almost going to start dying in the field.
Other than some high winds impacting small pockets of cornfields and a few cases of white mold starting to creep in for soybeans, Bruner says 2024 looks to be a bumper crop.
What I've seen says that, and the guys I've talked to, how are their crops looking? So far, fingers crossed, the diseases aren't there, the bugs aren't there, the weather's been good. Everything's set up pretty daggone good right now.
All right, thanks, Tyne. And let's review results from day 1 of the tour. In South Dakota, scouts reported finding fields with fewer corn ears, but grain length was up compared to last year. The tour finding a yield of 156.51 bushels to the acre. They also found higher soybean pod counts compared to last year, averaging 1,025 in a 3 by 3 foot square. Now in the east and Ohio, the corn yield estimate coming in slightly lower than last year's record at 183.29 bushels an acre, and the soybean pod counts were also down by 1.8%, averaging 1,229 pods in a 3 by 3 foot square. And we unveiled those day 1 results Monday night during Crop Tour Live online. What will day 3 bring? Find out tonight during Crop Tour Live. Make sure you click on the link over to AgWeb or on AgDay's social media channels just before 8 o'clock Central Time, because we will have the results from Western Iowa and Illinois right at 8 o'clock sharp, 9 o'clock Eastern.
The 2024 Pro Farmer Crop Tour and Ag Day is brought to you by Pioneer, combining cutting-edge research with one of the largest local testing programs in the industry to help farmers succeed. Pioneer, what's next happens here. By Citavo Soybean Seed, distributed exclusively by BASF. And by New Leaf Symbiotics, science-led, performance-driven, and data-backed, offering biostimulants for corn, soy, cotton, and peanuts, and a revolutionary new bioinsecticide for corn rootworm.
The Northeast cleaning up after torrential rains turned streets into raging rivers in portions of Connecticut and New York's Long Island. In Southbury, Connecticut, a mudslide destroyed several structures at a poultry farm and killed more than 100 chickens in New York. Officials in Long Island's largest county estimating at least $25 million in damage. Not as much rain, but there are chances for some showers today in Iowa. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has a look ahead to what scouts could face on day 3 of the tour.
Oh, here's another look at the crop tour forecast. Really, what we're going to be watching for is the potential for maybe some light showers the first half of the day as we get set for our Wednesday. So again, this is Wednesday at 7 a.m. See the green back behind me here as we go forward. Not seeing much progress to the east with showers during this route. Rather, these showers are going to be going more north to the south as they're going to be riding around a ridge of high pressure. A ridge of high pressure that's going to keep things pretty quiet if we're talking Iowa City or even Bloomington, Illinois. As for our Wednesday, if we look a little bit closer towards Nebraska City and Spencer, may pick up those scattered showers. And remember, we're moving these from the north to the south. So the first half of the day on Wednesday may have a few showers, and then as we get later in the afternoon, most of those showers hug back off and to the west.
While scouts may find big yields on Crop Tour this year, the question becomes what to do with all that grain once harvested. Now take a look at this. We asked you a short time ago, what percentage of old crop do you still have in storage? 83% of people who took the poll said they still had 0 to 25% in storage when it comes to corn. 89% reported the same when it comes to old crop beans. And according to the AgWeb survey, 52% of farmers say they don't plan to sell their old crop corn before harvest, while 60% say they're holding on to last season's soybeans. Analysts say it's more evidence farmers still have a lot of old crop to sell as lower commodity prices persist. Feeder cattle contracts were under pressure on Tuesday, while soybeans traded relatively flat. We have some options considerations coming up next. And later, some ladies are really making themselves heard in the country.
Earn revenue through the Bear Carbon Program. Simple, flexible, certain. Learn more at bearforeground.com/carbon.
Happening right now, Canada is facing a potential rail strike that could have major impacts here at home. Canadian National Railway and Canadian Pacific Kansas City facing a potential nationwide shutdown tomorrow. That's if they cannot reach an agreement with their unionized workers, which impacts over 9,000 employees. The possible strike threatens to disrupt the movement of things like wheat, chemicals, and fertilizers, with industries bracing for billions in losses. USDA is warning the impact would be devastating, hitting the flow of farm goods in the U.S. and beyond. It's reported talks are continuing, but the parties remain far apart on key issues, including crew fatigue and wage increases. Corn and soybeans trade nearly even while livestock were slumping on Tuesday. Wheat, however, made some modest gains. AgDay's Michelle Rook is looking to help farmers with marketing in markets now.
Joining us with market analysis, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. Well, Chip, we have soybean prices sitting at 3.5, 4-year lows and a record crop seemingly coming. So what is your marketing advice for producers in this environment?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Michelle. It's very individualized. There's not a one-size-fits-all. I think first and foremost, you have to look at where your crop insurance coverage is. And, it depends on the coverage level you take. But, just do a review of your crop insurance and figure out where is your guarantee. Take what you think your actual yields are out in the field right now, which I know is impossible to predict, but get a good realistic, assessment of those yields and divide it back into your crop insurance guarantee. And that'll tell you what price level beans have to be in order to kick in a crop insurance payment. You might find out that it's far below the level that we're currently trading. If that's the case, then you have to back in and say, all right, what do I need to be doing here? Can I store my beans? There's plenty of carry in the market. What's the basis, look like out there? And so I think as you get ready to go to the field to harvest here, is definitely not the time to kind of put the markets to the wayside here, because there still could be some decisions to be made. And if your yields are big enough with enough carry in the market, that yield could actually get you closer to the revenue you need.
How do you capture the carry that we have in the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the only way to capture it is to go out and either make a forward sale out in the future, December, January, February, March, even if you want to, or typically hold that out into, spring and summer. You have to go out and either make a forward contract or an HTA sale, which is setting the futures price now, waiting till later to set the basis. But you actually have to make that actual sale in order to lock that carry in. You could do a futures hedge as well with a deferred short sale.
Don't know that there's a lot of old crop bushels out there yet, but if someone has old crop, is there anything they can do there marketing wise?
Now, I don't think you have a lot of time to do this. I think the time is, maybe days to a week or 10 days, but there may be some basis pushes out there to be had if it's a situation where we need to kind of make room and get these final sales made of old crop.
Thanks so much, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Quick check of what's going on across the nation. We do have that upper level low, still churning. That's something we were dealing with this past weekend through the Midwest. Now we're dealing with it in the Northeast. So everything's rotating counterclockwise around the circle here. But the big feature that we've been talking about for nearly a week is the ridge developing back across the United States. So much like what we've seen the last couple of days, we'll see some of these ridge riders come north to south, not making too much progress to the east, all the way into our Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon. This trough works off to the north and to the east, with the ridge continuing to build in. With it, some heat will be coming as well. End of August, early September heat wave through portions of the United States. You can see with the ridge in place, not seeing a lot of activity back through the Midwest, back to Tennessee and North Carolina. There are going to be some disturbances along the Gulf Coast states that could bring us a quick tropical downpour or two. With that ridge in place, we're looking like a long-term pattern where the weather's going to be relatively quiet. Not completely zero with the rain chances or thunderstorm chances, but on average, quiet pattern setting up as late as Saturday or this weekend, Saturday night and into Sunday, with this large ridge developing. And the next disturbance that we're keeping an eye on with cooler, wetter, cloudier skies is going to be back here with this trough. Depending on how strong or how deep this trough dips to the south, it could nudge this ridge out. Next week, what we're going to be following is that energy. Is it going to be able to nudge that ridge out and work east, or is it going to eject back up here towards the north? Something worth watching next Monday and Tuesday with that. Otherwise, Jetstream looking for you Wednesday and Thursday. Not much in significant weather systems moving across the United States. Maryland, mostly sunny, high around 74 degrees, low of 59. Cut Bank, Montana, partly cloudy, high of 77, low of 46. Emma, Kansas, actually Emma Township, Kansas, mostly sunny, high of 86 degrees.
USDA is expecting big things out of this year's corn and soybean crops, but weather continues to be the unknown factor. The agency releasing its latest crop progress report earlier this week, and compared to last week, there's little change in the overall condition numbers, with 67% of the corn crop rated good to excellent. For soybeans, it's 68% good to excellent.
And so I don't see anything standing in the way of what is still expected to be very large corn and soybean crops.
And we also got our final report of the winter wheat harvest, which shows 96% of the acreage has now been harvested. That's 1% ahead of the 5-year average.
Only 2 states have at least 1/4 of their winter wheat crops still in the field. That is Montana, 75% harvested, and Idaho, 72% harvested.
Now, Rippey says there is a concern of some dryness that's starting to appear in corners of the Midwest as we head into the late growing season. We're hearing a lot about grocery prices in the run-up to the presidential election. It's an element of the economic debate that impacts every voter. Now, grocery inflation peaked at a year-over-year increase of 13.5% in August of 2022 and has steadily fallen. Last month's report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed overall grocery prices were up 1.1% year-over-year. But one professor of ag economics at Purdue University says individual items will still see spikes based on supply, demand, and external factors, like eggs, for example, up 19% year-over-year because of avian flu.
Egg producers, poultry producers have to destroy birds, flocks of birds that would otherwise lay eggs and produce chicken meat. And so we have a reduction in the supply of eggs and higher egg prices.
Grocery prices are up about 20% since the pandemic year of 2020, which means a $100 grocery cart now costs $120. Now, prices at the grocery store aren't the only reason to holler. Up next, we'll stop by a husband calling competition in Tennessee that's turning heads and getting plenty of attention in the country. Farmers have their own way of calling in livestock from the field, but those farm wives have a unique way of getting their husband's attention as well. Feast your ears on the annual husband calling contest at the Wilson County, Tennessee State Fair. Ladies putting on peak shriek performances, all for some cash, prizes, and bragging rights. Shannon Howerco of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, just happened to be at the fair with her husband Gene and decided, after hearing a few other wives shout out, she would give it a try. With a sustained cry of, "Gene, oh, get that snow shoveled," she ended up taking home the first place ribbon. And make sure to call everyone over to watch tonight's crop tour live. A reminder, we will be unveiling day 3 results from Western Iowa and Illinois. You can check it out just before 8 o'clock Central Time. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on Farm Country.